In today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast, we are joined by Laz Jackson to talk about the Detroit Pistons playoff series. Why did they lose? What are our biggest takeaways from the series? And what's our thought process heading into the offseason? Talk about that in today's episode of Locked On Pistons podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Ku Khahil. You can find me over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. There's another great way to support the podcast. I am joined today by Laz Jackson. You can find him over on Twitter at Last Chance. Today is going to be a fun episode. You guys know the deal. Go to the description down below. You can find the Substack and you can find the playback room. Appreciate all of you guys. Check that all out. And like I've said the last few episodes, it is tough that the season's over. I'm not used to the fact that the season is like, I don't know about you, Laz, but like I mentioned this and then we'll get into the episode, but it's not even so much that like the Pistons season is like, oh, there's no more Pistons basketball. It's more so that this team season is like this, the 2024-2025 team, you're not watching those guys no more. Because it felt like this team was just had a lot of enjoyment, a lot of just happiness. It felt like a special team. So the fact that you just won't get to see those guys again kind of sucks. But I don't know how you feel about it.
I mean, like being at all the playoff games was like you could see the energy. Like that's my main takeaway from the season is like the energy in the building for those playoff games was ridiculous, right? And so like yeah, there is a base for something from the fans. There's a base for something like with the team and the roster construction. Like there's something brewing here, and like people can sense it and people can feel it. Like that said, they lost all those games. That wasn't the fan experience I think a lot of us wanted. That was certainly not the fan experience like I wanted for me personally. But like, you know, we head into the offseason with clear eyes and hopefully a solid idea of like what to do next. And this is something to build on, right? But like we talked about pre-show, like expectations are a killer, right?
Yeah.
And so we're gonna see. I mean, we're gonna see where it goes.
Yeah, and we'll get to that later on in the episode. We're going to talk about our thoughts heading into the offseason later on. We'll get into our biggest takeaways from the playoff series. But first, I want to start with Laz and just ask him, what do you think is the reason why the Pistons lost? Like after it's been a few days, I said on the podcast last episode, I need a few days before I did the film breakdown because I was so frustrated.
I don't blame you at all, man.
I needed just a few days to cool down, but it's been about a week now. Why do you believe the Pistons ended up not being able to pull this off and ended up losing in 6 games to the Knicks?
So there's 2 big reasons in my mind that the Pistons didn't win the series. You can weight them equally, but those are like the main pillars, right? First, my big one place where I thought the Pistons had not a comparative advantage, but like someplace they could make things closer on the Knicks was between Tobias Harris and Isaiah Stewart. They can play 48 minutes of really tough, really physical defense on Karl-Anthony Towns. When Isaiah Stewart didn't play in the series after game 3, they lost the ability to do that. And that really, really hurt them. So Jaden Ivey didn't play for 3 months, right? Like it was unreasonable to expect that he might make it back for the playoffs as an outside shot. Losing Stu, essentially right before the playoffs or right in the middle of the series, that really hurt them. And the other reason is as I scroll over to Basketball Reference and make sure I got this right, Cade shot 18% from 3 in the series. That's pretty bad. Now, I was talking about this on Twitter the other day. Like in the regular season, like efficiency is king, and in the playoffs, production is king. And Cade still produced numerically, still averaged 25, 8, and 8, but 18% from 3 was 0 of 8 in Game 6. As much as this team didn't give him enough to work with at times during the playoffs, like he also just didn't rise to the occasion from the perimeter, and it made him easier to defend, and it closed things off on offense for the Pistons. Looking at that, sometimes it makes more sense why the lineups that JB decided to go to were out there, and yeah, so those are my 2 big things. Is like if Stu played, I'm going to feel like this for 30 years. I feel like if Isaiah Stewart played in that series, we win that series, right? And then Cade needs to shoot 30 35% from three in a series to make it really happen.
Yeah, I think Stu being out absolutely killed them,
Yeah.
especially in, like you mentioned, in game 3 and game 4, especially when Tobias got into foul trouble, and those are the games that Cat really took off and just went crazy. It was simply because that Tobias got into foul trouble. They don't have no one else to put on him. You put Duren on him now, it's a mismatch. Which that's another conversation that I've seen people want to have. That
Yes, it is.
yeah, that you have to kind of hide your center, and that if he is forced to guard Cat, you're kind of just like tough. Like it
Yeah.
is what it is. But yeah, definitely being without Stu killed that possibility. And Tobias, I thought had a fantastic series, but anytime he had to leave the floor, it was just it was tough. And we talked about this on the podcast throughout the year. It wasn't just the playoffs, even in the season. I mean, his on off was like the highest on the team. And was it because he had a good? Yeah, he was good this season. Were they good with him on the floor? Yes, for sure. But it had a lot to do with the fact that who was coming in for him just was not good at all. Like he didn't have a good replacement. So I thought losing Stu really just killed them. And the other reason for me that I immediately come away thinking is, and we've said this on the podcast too, is that the Knicks had Brunson and Cat. When Brunson wasn't on, Cat was able to close the deal in game 3 and game 4. When Cat wasn't going, obviously Brunson was able to close every other game that they had. Whereas with the Pistons, it really was just Cade to close the deal. And he was able to do it game 5 when he scored 13 in the fourth, which is you got to see it. But outside of that, I said this a few days ago. I think Cade's going to be really not upset. I think he's going to keep himself up at night at some of the looks he got at the end of these games. Like I believe it was game
Game
3.
four.
He missed was it game 4 when
Yep.
he missed the
Yeah.
midi?
Oh yeah, no. Game 3 was the midi. Game 4 was he went to the rim because he missed the midi, and it was like the scramble for the ball. They ended up with THJ in the corner.
Yep. And then game 6, I am a big vocal critic of the Asar substitution. I think maybe they win if they keep Asar in. But despite that, Cade had some really good looks. I think he's going to go back and watch film and say, I made those shots a lot tougher on myself, especially some of the drives to the rim on the left side of the court against Cat. Felt like he could easily just got a really easy layup at the rim. He kind of went with a fade away from the rim, leaner with his left hand, made it really harder on himself. I think Cade had opportunities to really stop the bleeding in some games or close the deal out, which his first playoff series, he'll get better. He'll come back and this is par for course, but I mean, that was just, you got to pay respect for Jalen Brunson for real, because there was a
Yeah.
lot of talk before the series. Is Cade the best player in the series? And as much as we love Cade, I mean, Jalen Brunson kind of shut that down. I mean,
Yeah.
Jalen Brunson was tremendous, and that's the Knicks had the best player in the series, and I think that overall won them the series.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like you would think that the Knicks would make Cade work for it, and they did, but it wasn't like, oh, like he was being suffocated by the Knicks defense. He just didn't make the shots that he normally makes over the course of the regular season, right? And so maybe you attribute some of that to like it's the longest season he's ever played. It's the the playoff intensity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever it is, at the end of the day, like those clean looks that he made or that he created like didn't go in, and that's tough. But like you mentioned, like I think he's 23. This is something for him to build upon, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
and
I have every confidence that they'll be back in the playoffs
oh yeah, for
eventually.
sure. For sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, hopefully.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. But
So we've
him
been Pistons fans too long to like
right.
guarantee it. But
Uh for him shooting so poorly from deep was pretty shocking to me. I know he shot over, like I think he shot much higher than his season average against the Knicks during the season in the matchups. But
they shot
I
like
mean,
50% from three against the
yeah,
Knicks in the regular season.
but crashing down to 18 like that was, and there was, if he just had one of those, like I feel like he had 1 3 drop, I believe, game 5 in the fourth
Yep,
quarter against in the
yep,
hedge gap area, where he was able to get 3 off. If he was in game 6, you saw he lost confidence in it and just didn't want to take it. I mean, there was a lot of openings in the hedge gap where he could have just made them pay for trying to show and get back, and he kind of just lost confidence in it. I mean, I understand why, but that was very tough. And like we mentioned earlier, losing Stu was an absolute killer. But coming up, biggest takeaways from the playoff series. It's tough that they lost. Obviously, no one wanted them to lose, but there are some positives to take away from the playoffs. Obviously, this was a great season, and we'll talk about what those takeaways are when we come back. Today's episode is brought to you by OpenPhone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber or a service provider. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on, and that's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. The shared inbox feature is a game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat, and their AI agent handles after hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer. OpenPhone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's openphone.com/lockedonnba. If you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers with OpenPhone. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Head over to the Substack where I'll have written playoff preview, or not previews, reviews go along with the podcast over the next few weeks. We'll have some film breakdowns going over some specific games over the next few weeks as well. Also, the Playback Room will be hosting watch parties for the playoffs, the rest of the playoff way, and we'll recap some of the Pistons games as well over there throughout the offseason. So check those two out in the description if you haven't already. But last, let's go ahead and get into it. What are your biggest takeaways from the playoff series? Obviously, no one expected the Pistons to be a 6 seed. No one really expected the Pistons before the year to win 2 playoff games, and they were able to do that. So I think everyone has an optimistic view of the team right now. But just what are your biggest takeaways after seeing this series?
So my biggest takeaway was that like there were very, in my mind at least, there were very clear things that they could have done to change the course of the series. But the fact that they didn't is more of an opportunity to grow rather than like an indictment of the season that they had. I know that you've been on this from like game 2 on. Like they needed to play Asar more minutes. They need to find a more clearly defined offensive role for Asar so that he can be on the floor and contribute defensively at the level that he's capable of doing. We got some good answers about like the young guys, right? Like Cade Cunningham. Like we talked about him not performing, but like he was very productive in a playoff series against as we saw last night against the Celtics, like a really good defensive suite of wings from the Knicks. Jalen Duren performed like he produced and he performed, I think, as well as you can expect, like a 21-year-old who we know who his limitations are, and he kind of played to them. But in his role, I thought he was really effective overall in the playoffs. Like I'm happy with his role. That was something that I really wanted to see in particular before you figure out like what his extension number is going to be this offseason. And then last but not least, uh, they got to figure out something to do with the 4 spot, with the backup 4 spot. Tobias, only 1 more year on his contract. Like maybe that's a long-term solution, maybe it's not. And so they really need to come into this offseason and the next couple of off seasons with a long-term plan at 4. Like maybe that's a SAR and you're like building some kind of like jumbo wing lineup. Maybe that's Ron Holland in the very long term. Maybe it's a free agent signing. Maybe it's a trade, right? Like that's the piece you're trading future assets for or something like that. But to me, like those are the big takeaways is the performance of the key young guys who played and the fact that you now can see like what you need to add to this young core moving forward to hopefully have like more playoff success than you've already had.
Yeah, I completely agree. My biggest takeaway was the young guys. I thought like heading into their first playoff series against a 3 seed, going into Madison Square Garden, again, the rowdiness of just the playoffs and the pressure of the playoffs. I mean, we're sitting here talking about it. The Pistons could have won this series. They very easily could have won this series. They had a chance to win the series, and
Yeah.
that is with each young guy being in the playoffs for the very first time. Jalen Duren, 21 years old. Asar Thompson, 22. Cade Cunningham, 23. And I feel like it throughout this series, despite losing, were they perfect? No. But I feel like they all gave you answers and enough to feel like, oh yeah, they'll be back, and they were ready for this. Like you mentioned, I thought they were better with Asar on the floor. I think the numbers back that up. I thought he was really good defensively, but then even offensively in the final I think second half of game 4, game 5, and then game 6, you started to figure, okay, he's starting to figure it out. They're starting to figure out how they want to use him, and he was really impactful. Jalen Duren, like you mentioned, I think his limitations are clear, but he played up, I thought, to the ceiling that he had. Whatever ceiling it was, I feel like he hit it. Like he hit whatever he was going to be able to do in the playoffs this year. And then Cade Cunningham, was he able to close out and go toe to toe with arguably the best fourth quarter scorer in the NBA? No, he wasn't able to do that. But he had his moment in game 5 to win the Pistons game in the fourth quarter. He had his moment in game 2 when he exploded for 33 and able to get the Pistons to win in Madison Square Garden. He was able to put up numbers that we haven't seen since Oscar Robertson, 25, 8, and 8 as a guy at 23 or younger. Like, he was able, was he perfect? No. But he was able to do things that we haven't seen a player do in decades. That should give you immense confidence that, okay, when he comes back with better experience and an even better team, he'll be ready for it. When Asar comes back with better experience and better team, he'll be ready with an off-season conditioning. Maybe that's why Asar didn't play a lot. He still wasn't up to conditioning. Another off-season, he'll be better. Duren, he'll be better. I just feel like, and the vets were amazing. The vets really kept them in some of these games, especially Tobias, really, and Schroeder. Schroeder was fantastic. But you got from your young guys going against an experienced, overly talented team. They were much more talented than the Pistons and Knicks were. And Asar didn't look scared. Cade didn't look scared. Duren didn't look scared. They gave it everything they had, and they were in every single game and had themselves a chance to win. So I think you walk away from this series saying, for the first time since 2007, 2008, or actually even going back since 2004, really, I guess, that you feel like you have a core of guys you can build around moving forward, and you feel comfortable and confident that this is the core and they will be around for years to come.
Yeah. And think about what we were talking about coming into the season, right? We were talking about, okay, hopefully the vets that they put around these young guys are able to supplement them and we can see what the young guys got, right? So and that is exactly what happened. Now we see what the young guys have. And so now it becomes a process of it's like you keep some vets, you lose some vets through like attrition or contracts or like expires or like whatever. But now that you've seen the young guys perform, it's a matter of like putting the right pieces around them and not a question of like can they do it or not, right? Because that was the big thing this year was like fact finding, like being able to figure out like how successful can this team be with these young guys at the helm, and we have an answer now. So now it becomes a matter of all right, how do we best, what are the best possible players we can put around these young guys moving forward that don't like cripple us in the long term from like a contract perspective or a team building perspective.
And I think we want to get to that segment. So this one's going to be a little bit shorter, but I want to give us as much time as possible to talk about the offseason. Because Laz told me before the episode that he has a lot to say here. So I want to give us as much time as possible. We'll be right back to talk about our thoughts on the offseason. What should the Pistons do? What won't they do? What's the next step? We'll talk about all of that coming up. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review. Whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on is another great way to support the podcast. You guys know, go to the description down below for the Substack and the playback. I got you guys content-wise all throughout the offseason. We don't stop over here. You feel me? It is what it is. All right, Laz, let's get to the offseason, man. You said you had a lot to say about this, so let's go ahead and get into it. What's your thought process? What are you thinking about first? Like what is it that you're so hype about going into the offseason?
So the first thing I'm thinking about, right, is is this the offseason to step on the gas or not? Like after the Rockets
Be
were
careful.
eliminated.
Be
Yeah,
careful what you say here, because it will
yeah,
be you will be
it will be held against
attacked.
me, right? No, but after the Rockets were eliminated, it seems fairly clear to everyone involved that like they're going to step on the gas this offseason, right? What that like they're going to make a trade for a name, like a capital N name. Like is that the case? Like should the Pistons do that? I think is going to be the big point of debate. And it's going to be a really big inflection point, right? Because again, with the way the new CBA is, like you're paying Cade what you're paying him, and you figure out the contract extensions for Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren, and then if you add a third guy or a fourth guy, however many guys, it's like you're kind of locked in to the rest of this roster, right? And then it becomes like you're fiddling on the margins. It's like so I think Bobby Marks wrote the piece after the season was over about how where they were financially. I think Howard Beck wrote a piece at the Ringer about
Yep.
how basically like this wasn't the offseason to step on the gas for the Pistons. Part of me considers the fact that um, with the way that things are looking in Milwaukee, um, and with the way that things are looking at like Miami and Atlanta long term, the Pistons could like just stand pat and probably be fine in the Eastern Conference. Like a big reason why Houston has to step on the gas is because if you don't, like you won't stay competitive in the Western Conference, and the Pistons aren't aren't in the Western Conference, and as thus like don't have to worry about that. Um, but yeah, like you you absolutely need to figure out like what to do with the 4 spot, right? Again, like Tobias is I like Tobias a lot. He played his heart out in this playoff series. You mentioned the plus minus, like the team was much better with him on the floor. Is it reasonable to expect at like 33 that we're going to get that from him for like the next 3 to 4 years, which is what we presume this course? Because you hope for like a 5 year window, right? And if this is year one of that, you're hoping for like 3 4 more years. It's like, is Tobias going to be able to play at that level for the entirety of that window? And the answer is like probably not. Like no shade to him. Like again, he's a great dude, great vet. But like I don't think that's a reasonable expectation. And so you go in, it's like, okay, who's the long-term solution for this team at that position in particular? Because all of the other things like fall into place. From there becomes it's like, okay, what are you willing to part with in order to find that long-term solution, right? Is it worth it to get, is it worth it to get like a Jaren Jackson Jr. if it costs you Asar Thompson or Ron Holland, right? Is it worth it to get a guy like a Jabari Smith Jr. if it costs you less, but that guy's like just he's not in the same place as a guy like Jaren Jackson is, right? Um, is it worth it to like go after a Zion Williamson where you're going after like the incredible high highs, but he might play 30 games and then you've traded something of great value for something that like won't like contribute meaningfully during the course of the regular season, like most likely the playoffs, right? And so, like, there are options available, like, for this team, at that position in particular, and it's like what they do or like, do you just sign like Santi Aldama and be like, all right, like we're gonna try like this is gonna be our Simone replacement, and maybe like he can contribute more than Simone did over the course of the season, and we hope that that'll be enough to like get out of the first round, and that's all we really need, right? Because the bias is expiring, and we'll figure out like a longer term solution there, right? So like what they do with that 4 position will tell me a lot this offseason.
All right, so we will be hearing by the time you guys listen to this. We're recording this on Tuesday. It should be coming out Wednesday. Trajan Langdon will be talking to everybody Wednesday morning. That's his exit press conference. So we might get a little insight into how he's feeling by the time you guys listen to this. So just to give you guys a understanding that we are recording this before Trajan speaks. So don't listen to Trajan speak. Come here and be like, "Did you guys not hear Langdon?" We're like, come on.
And they're like, no, the answer is no, we didn't
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we didn't do it yet. Chill.
All right, so Laz, I want to ask you this because you bring up a point that I know I'm probably gonna be on the minority of throughout the offseason, but it is what it is. I'm willing to go. I'm not gonna go all the way there this early in the offseason. I don't feel like pissing everybody off this early. But you brought up how if you extend, you've already extended Cade and he's gonna get this all NBA, so it's gonna go up.
Mhm.
If you extend Duran and then you extend Ivy, I personally, and maybe people disagree, I feel like Asar should be a higher priority than them to extend, but whatever. Okay, let's say you then extend Asar. You're locked in. Like that's
Yeah,
that's
those are
your
your
team.
guys.
That
Yeah,
there is no, oh, let's go get some. That's it. That's you better believe that is your your contending team. Like
yeah.
you're locked in.
Or you're compelled to trade one of them on that contract, like for something else, right? Like you're locked into like trading one of those guys instead of like trying to. It's like, oh, maybe we trade Tobias Harris, like maybe we do some like Simone and cap space shenanigans. Maybe we like sign and trade somebody, right? It's like, no, if you're paying K what like 40 million and you're paying Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren like somewhere in the neighborhood of like 55 to $60 million combined, like, yeah, no, you got to trade one of those guys because otherwise the roster just doesn't work from a balance perspective.
Right. So with all these extensions coming up, because I mean, you have the
I mean,
decision.
now you're gonna get me in trouble, Ku. But
Oh,
ask the question.
look,
Ask the question.
look. It is what it is. With Ivy and Duran potentially coming up this offseason, you don't have to extend this offseason, but you can this offseason, or you can go into restricted free agency. We'll see which way they go. And then the following year is when Asar comes up, and then the following year after that is when Ron comes up. I am just of the belief. That's all I'm gonna say is that you have to start making decisions.
Mhm.
You have to start making some finality decisions. I feel like this offseason. Now, whether your decision is this is our core, this is the team we will win with, we're gonna pay these guys. Okay, let that be your decision. But I feel like this is just where my brain goes and how I feel. I feel like now that Cade showed you he is an All NBA player, you should be trying now to maximize the rest of Cade's window with your team. You should not be wasting a single year now. Before it was like, okay, is Cade actually the guy? We believe it, but we don't know, like blah, blah. This year, he's the guy. He's an All NBA player. He's going to make the All NBA team. He just got you to the playoffs. He broke all these droughts for you, blah, blah. Like he is the guy. Now that he's answered that question, I feel like every year after this should be just about now you have to maximize each year you have this dude. Because you don't know how long you will have that dude. And
Mhm.
assuming that he will be that dude for 7 years for you maybe, but you don't know. So I'm in the camp of every year now you need to be maximizing Cade. That doesn't mean you act stupid and ruin your cap. I just feel like you have to start you can't keep, we'll wait and see. We'll wait to make this decision. Wait to make this. Like you have to, I think you have to start making some finality decisions about what route you want this team to be going in moving forward. And again, that doesn't mean you have to go all in for a trade. It could be whatever. I just feel like you need to have you have to have a decision in place. I don't want there to be. I know I'll be in a minority about this as well. Next year, if the Pistons if the Pistons were to make the 5th seed next year and lose in 7 in the first round, that's not good to me. That would be. I feel like you're wasting years of a franchise player, and you shouldn't be. So if they feel like just resigning everybody gets you to that next step, okay, then that's a decision. Okay, I'll get behind it. Just make those decisions, and fans, I feel like, need to be prepared for these decisions because it may be some potential unpopular decisions. But I
Yeah.
mean, we'll see. Either way, a decision has to be made.
Yeah, if you're not making progress, you're regressing, right? If you think you're running in place, like you're probably actually running backwards because everybody else is trying to get ahead, right?
Correct. Yes.
I talked a little bit about how like even if they do nothing, maybe through sheer inertia, like you could still make the playoffs because the East is what the East is. And like that may be the case. But again, like if they lose in 6 again next year, like then people are gonna start asking questions. And if they lose in 6 next year, they're going to be a more expensive team, like one way or another, probably. And then you've already like kind of cut your potential options for how you can get better. So I do think you're right in that this season is like this off season, like the clock like officially starts, right? I also think you're right in that like what they decide to end up doing will reveal a lot. But what that is, like what the right decision is, like I'm not wholly sure, right? Um, we complained about the lack of secondary ball handling next to Cade like all off season. But in my mind, like Jaden Ivey is like probably the most would get you the most in value in return in a trade, right? So then it becomes a matter of like, okay, like maybe you do pay Ivy and Duran, but maybe Ivy is the guy because he gets you more in trade, like you're more likely to like see what he's worth on the restricted free agency market. Maybe that makes him angry. Maybe the injury means you get him for cheap, right? You get him for slightly cheaper. You get him for like, you know, you get on like a Kobe White deal, like 18, right? Instead of like 25. It's like that would be a huge deal, and that saves you like a whole nother rotation player pretty much. And so it's like maybe you're able to do that. Maybe what we saw from Jalen Duren in this playoffs was really big, but we also saw his limitations, and they want to skew in a different direction, and they want somebody who can stretch the floor, right? And so it's like, okay, well, in that case, maybe Duren's on the way out, and we figure bigs are a little bit more fungible in today's NBA. It's like we can bring somebody in here and like figure out a way to space the floor, and just lean on our perimeter defenders, and much like the Knicks have, right? We can lean on our perimeter defenders to create havoc and make it easy, make it hard for other players on the perimeter, and just like worry about the rim protection like when we get there, right? There are gonna be avenues for this team to take. We just don't know what they're gonna be.
Yeah, and I think that I was on Woodward Sports and they asked me this the other day, but I feel like this team can take another step next year without making a big move. Like in order for them to get better than the 6th seed, and maybe win a first round series.
Mhm.
I think if Ivy improves and comes back healthy, Asar comes back and improves, and then they just improve upon from Fontecchio, whether it's Tobias moving to the backup four, you get a starting four, or whether
Yeah.
it's a backup four for Tobias. I think you could do that and get better than
You
the
could
6th seed
you
and
could
maybe win a
improve on the
playoff series.
Simone slot, and you can improve on the THJ spot, and you could cross your fingers and say that like Stu is healthy for the playoffs,
Right.
and you could win a first round series that way, right?
Yes. Yeah. I agree. I think you can do that and win a first round series, and I think that would be progress. Obviously, everyone would be happy with that.
Yep.
I think everyone's question that you're going to get, like you mentioned earlier, I think everyone's question, despite that, will continue to be. I mean, we saw TJ Lane come out and almost like end the happiness in the Pistons community by asking, "Where's the Robin? Is Cade even Batman? Like, what's going on?" So I think everyone's question is just going to continue to be: Is there a Robin? When are they going to go get a Robin? Are they going to make a big deal for a star? Blah 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 blah. And I have been able to believe that eventually that will happen. I don't know when. I don't know if it's this offseason. I don't know. Maybe it's next offseason. Maybe it's at the trade deadline next year. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
And you need Robin to like fit next to Batman, right? It can't
yes.
be like Batman and like Superboy, right? Like you need those dudes to be able to fit together. And not every superstar that like shakes loose is gonna be like a classic fit next to Cade. So you got to be prepared for that as well, right?
Yeah. And I want to ask you this before we get out of here, because this is just something that goes. I'm in the camp right now of probably just bring all the young guys back, improve along the margins, upgrade from Fontecchio. I try to sign and trade THA with Tech and maybe a pick and try to get a four. I agree that the four position is the biggest deal out of everything possible. That's what I would do, and then just give the MLE to Malik. I think that's probably where I'm at right now. However, there's something that just keeps going that I just keep thinking about, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Do you agree? And maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'd love to hear you correct me and let me know. But I have had a belief, a partial belief that because Cade is so early, he's 23 and he's so early in his contract. I know people. I understand, and I somewhat also agree with waiting. But also, if you want to make a mistake, wouldn't it be like year one with Cade, so then you can correct it by the end of his contract? Because like if you wait till year 3 of the super max or the max,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
and then that's your move, and then that messes up. Now you're probably in the like, oh my god, is he about to ask out? Like, is it over? Like, did we just ruin our timeline? Whereas if you make a move and maybe it doesn't work out in year one, you still have 4 years to pivot off of it and kind of correct that mistake. Am I right for thinking that way, or my camera just went out? Can you hear me?
Yeah, your camera just went out.
Okay.
I can hear you though. I don't think what you very rarely do you see guys like ask out at the beginning of the first max. Like normally the inflection point is either like right before they're set to get the next one, or you do the Bradley Beal where you sign it and then you like I was like, all right, I did it. And I was like, all right, a season later, you're like, all right, this sucks, like trade me. Right. And so that would be the timeline I'm more worried about would be like, 3 years from now when you're gonna have to hand Cade like 60-65 million dollars and figure out like how to build a team from there. The thing I'll say is the with the new CBA, it really seems like optimal roster construction is going to be like your Batman makes like 60, your next guy makes like 40, and then like everybody else is a role player, right? As opposed to like what we're used to in a classic like big three style, where you have three guys making maxes and like you just fill in the rest around that. Saw that this year in Phoenix, like that don't work anymore, right? The rest of the talent across the rest of the league is too good to get away with that. And so in my mind, like I want them to operate under like that cap framework, right? If you're like bringing in another, if you're paying Cade what, again, I think Cade made like 45 or 50. If you're paying Cade that and you bring in another guy who's also making like 45 or 50 just because they're a more experienced player, like on that max level contract, like, yeah, you have your second guy, but then I think the various knock on effects across the rest of the roster are like too great to bear, probably.
All right, fair enough. We'll see what happens. This offseason is going to be incredibly interesting. I'm going to predict that Trajan comes out tomorrow and he says, patience, we're going to take it slow. We're not pressing the gas. We're going to be patient. And again, I don't think that's the wrong move. I don't know what the right move is as of right now. I don't think anybody knows exactly what the right move is.
We just got these picks back, man. Like
Yes.
we just got our future back. Like let's figure like let's
Yeah.
own the flexibility for a little bit before we just like lock ourselves into something.
Right. And look, we'll see what happens. Again, this is the fun part of it. We get to see what happens. This roster building, it's going to be fun. We'll see what happens. Again, I don't know what the right move is. And maybe Trajan doesn't even know right now. Trajan may not know what the right move is right now. You have a lot of decisions coming up that you have to take into account. Ivy, Duren's extension this year. You got Malik, Schroeder, all free agents. You got Asar coming up next year. A bunch of things coming to one offseason right after your franchise player shows he is the guy. So much stuff goes into it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. No wrong way, I don't think. I just want to see a firm path and decision taken. And I think Trajan has proven that he probably will I think he will come to a plan and stick to that plan. We'll probably get to hear more about that tomorrow morning. But all right, Laz, appreciate you coming on. You guys can find Laz over on Twitter at Laz Chance. I appreciate you guys always making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. What's your guys' thoughts on what the Pistons should do this offseason? I know a lot of you guys want them to go after Devin Booker, even though he's about to sign a 2-year max with Phoenix. You guys still want them to go get
for
Devin
$75 million or whatever it's going to be.
I know you guys still want them to go get Devin Booker. Are you in that camp? Do you want them to trade for a star? Should they do nothing? What is it you guys think is the right plan? Let me know in the comment section down below. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. And until next time, peace out, everybody.